We have had the technology to create, control, and steer hurricanes for decades.
Project Cirrus is the first official attempt to modify a hurricane. It was run by General Electric with the support of the U.S. military. The official theory was that by changing the temperature outside the eye wall of a hurricane, which they did by seeding the clouds with various compounds such as silver iodide, a decrease in strong winds will result. On October 13, 1947, Project Cirrus targeted a hurricane heading out to sea. Approximately 180 pounds of dry ice was dropped into the clouds. The crew then reported a pronounced modification of the cloud deck, and the hurricane abruptly changed direction and made landfall near Savannah, Georgia. The public blamed the government. Irving Langmuir, who pioneered General Electric's atmospheric research department and admitted that the project was about learning how to weaponize the weather, also claimed the reversal of the hurricane had been caused by Project Cirrus. But the government denied it for 12 years. After a short delay, the project officially continued, and in 1965, Project Storm Fury had targeted Hurricane Betsy for seeding. On that day, the storm immediately changed direction and made landfall in southern Florida. Congress blamed it on Project Storm Fury, but the government claimed that the hurricane shifted before they ever had a chance to seed it. And after 2 months of congressional hearings, the project was allowed to continue.
In 1997, U.S. Defense Secretary William Cohen admitted we have the technology to control the weather, including earthquakes and volcanoes. The U.S. government has placed gag orders on employees of the National Weather Service. In October of 2012, after Hurricane Sandy weakened to a tropical storm, microwave imagery shows a thick red beam immediately followed by Sandy growing into a Category 1 hurricane and taking an unexplained left turn into New Jersey. The push towards alternative energy demands more lithium, and according to the U.S. Geological Survey, the United States has over 6 million tons of identified lithium resources. The majority of this lithium has been identified in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. Kings Mountain is believed to have one of the largest resources in the world, but the biggest problem is that people live there, and they don't want their quiet towns turned into lithium mines.
People in Cherville have been pushing against a proposed lithium mine for the last several years, but everyone we spoke with here said it's too divisive of an issue to share their opinion on camera. Cherryville is a small, quiet town.
I think that's good that we keep it small.
So quiet, many don't feel comfortable speaking out against Piedmont Lithium's proposed mining operation nearby.
I think we're a silent majority. I think a lot of people are afraid to say anything about it because they are bringing a lot to the town as far as money.
Last year, the Department of Defense entered a $90 million agreement with Albemarle Corporation to increase domestic production of lithium for the nation's battery supply chain, specifically from Kings Mountain, North Carolina, starting by 2025. This is the same area experiencing what is being described as biblical floods. While the federal government spends billions on foreign wars and illegal immigrants, they simply cannot be bothered with the health and well-being of the American people, especially those living on coveted, mineral-rich land. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
Hello everyone. It's Doug Diamond here. It's 10:10 p.m. on October 6th, 2024. Welcome to the Diamond Report Live. Glad you guys made it. Got an active chat happening. We are currently live streaming on 3 platforms instead of 4. I decided to drop Facebook for the moment as far as the live streaming goes, just because it was, I think it was bogging down the computer too much. So we are live streaming on YouTube like normal and Rumble like normal, and I've added back in DLive. So if you guys happen to have a DLive account, you can also watch there. DLive.tv/Diamond Disc is where that is. So if you're on there, make sure you give me a follow on that platform as well, just because they do not censor. It's a video gamers platform, but they don't censor any content. So that's good news for the things that I speak of. Hope you guys are doing well, and it has been quite the week yet again, huh? Every week, just the insanity just keeps getting notched up a little bit more. Every single week, it seems, every single day. You could even say every hour. Pizzagate was real, Kathy says. Yes, it was real. It absolutely was. Now, what they did was they, the fabricated story was that Hillary was literally running it from the basement of the pizza place. However, it's the sex trafficking story that's the real story in the pedo situation. And, they tried to use that story to discredit the entire thing. So, none of it happened, but actually it is happening. It's just that pizza parlor aspect of it was not true. So, yeah, it was real from that standpoint. So, anyway, let's take a look at the news. We've got HalTurnerRadioShow.com pulled up here, and I thought we would look at a few of the articles on there. Israeli Broadcasting Corporation, quote, Israel response to Iran delayed, end quote, or Genesis 34 deception. So I pulled this up and thought we could take a look at this together. I don't really know what Hal's referring to yet, so let's see what he says. As of Sunday evening in Israel, the IBC reports Israel's retaliation against Iran has been delayed. Now keep in mind, they're retaliating against Iran, who's retaliating against them for all of the illegal stuff that they've done. So, Iran has been totally justified in their response. No, I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying that it's good. I'm just saying that they had a right to respond, and they did. And now, see, it's being ratcheted up yet again. Israel says they have to respond now because Iran responded. So it's just this constant back and forth. Israel's retaliation against Iran has been delayed due to uncertainty about the damage the attack would leave. Right. Not the strange earthquake in Iran that mimicked an underground nuke blast, which is a separate story that happened today. The report that Israel will delay its retaliation caused Iran to lift all airline flight restrictions and reopen all airspace, which it had closed in the western part of its country. But is this a feint? Did Israel put this out as misinformation so as to get Iran to lower its guard? All the way back in the Bible itself, there's a story of how Israel, in quotes, tricked and then slaughtered. So this is the Genesis 34 story, and pretty interesting. He's just saying, could the Israelis be doing the same thing all over again, only this time to the Iranians? Only time will tell. Yeah, I mean, the Israel gang over there isn't exactly known for their honesty, are they? Senior IDF official, the action against Iran will be significant. So they're saying that whenever they do react to Iran's reaction, respond to Iran's response, it will be, quote, significant. So who knows when it'll happen. Tomorrow's the big day, of course, October 7th. It's already October 7th over there. So I don't know. We'll see how this all plays out. My guess is something big will happen in the Middle East, at least on October 7th. Being how it's been a year now since the stand down and Hamas being allowed in and attacking Israel. So we'll see what happens. And then the other story that I found on Hal's site, a lesbian captain loses a ship. The Royal New Zealand Navy's ship Manawani sank this morning after running aground on a reef near the southern coast of Upolu, Samoa, last night and catching fire. In the video below, taken from the shore, the vessel is seen listing onto its side in water that is far too shallow for a vessel of that size to transit. So it's a short video. I guess we can watch it while I'm reading here. There's not really that much to the video, but it says the ship ultimately caught fire and is sunk. This is the kind of thing that happens when an unqualified person is put into a job so that someone else can cite it as diversity and inclusiveness. Yeah, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or whatever other nonsense they espouse. Merit is the only way to put the right people into the job so that everything gets done correctly. Yes. So anyway, that's the last of the articles on Hal's site that I had pulled up. But I thought that was pretty wild. Yes, DEI in action, I guess. Yes, another fantastic DEI hire. Emily says, yep. That's what it certainly appears that way, yep. So let's see here. Need to know.news. Local authorities threaten to arrest volunteers saving hurricane victims. Rescuer explains why feds reject help. So I'm sure many of you guys have seen what's going on over there, so I won't belabor the point too much, although we do want to read through some of this. North Carolina, Jordan Seahome, a former head narcotics detective, current volunteer firefighter, and helicopter pilot, has his own helicopter and was rescuing people who were stranded due to Hurricane Helene. I'm now calling Hurricane Harris because I think it fits. His rescue efforts he was providing at his own expense were allegedly thwarted by the local Lake Lure fire chief or assistant chief by threatening to arrest the pilot. He was just trying to help. Ryan Tyre, a person who claimed to have helped in disaster situations for a decade, posted an explanation on X about why citizens are turned away from helping and why it takes so long for the federal government to take action. He told a story about working to help people and provide supplies to people in Florida following Hurricane Irma, but they were turned away by authorities because their provisions were not on the preferred vendors list, quote unquote. And it was all about money. This claim has not been verified, but he includes photos and other evidence, according to J.W. Williams on needtoknow.news. Father and son with the helicopter began rescuing people stranded from Hurricane Harris. The government came in and threatened them with arrest. Your government is incompetent plus incapable of making the world a better place. Yeah, so I'm sure many of you guys saw this story out there. I think it was the guy who had his co-pilot who was also his son. And they basically ordered him to stand down and stop helping. But they did rescue several people, so that's good. What a mess this whole Hurricane Helene thing has turned out to be, man. FEMA broke after spending $1 billion on migrants and billions on Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Oh, I imagine there's still plenty of money for Ukraine and Taiwan and Israel especially. Swaths of North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, and Georgia have been devastated by Hurricane Harris, and floods that have led to the deaths of 184 people at this time. I think it's going to be significantly higher than this. Some of the videos that are coming out that were on X, and if it weren't for X, honestly, we wouldn't know half of the stuff that we know about this whole situation because mainstream media is not really reporting on this, obviously by design. But what one of the stories that I heard was that the people from FEMA were saying, no, you can just add a couple of zeros to the number of victims. That's the official number. So the official number at that time was 200. So what's that tell you? Anyway, there's still far, far less than what the actual numbers are. So it says search and rescue missions are ongoing amid water and food shortages. Many areas have power blackouts. On Wednesday, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas announced that that FEMA is essentially broke. He said, "We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting," meaning Milton, which is coming soon this week, actually. Mayorkas said, "FEMA does not have the funds to make it through this season." I wonder why. The Department of Homeland Security has spent close to $1 billion on the Shelter and Services Program for illegal aliens, $640 million in 2024, and $364 million in 2023, to enable non-federal entities to offset allowable costs incurred for services associated with non-citizen migrant arrivals in their communities. Last week, it was reported that the U.S. gave Israel $8.7 billion in military aid, $8 billion in military aid for Ukraine, and $567 million in military support for Taiwan. As of April, more than $174 billion in American tax dollars have been appropriated to assist Ukraine. Yeah. So it's really unbelievable, but it's so very obvious to anyone who's paying even just a little bit of attention that our government hates us and wants us to die. So we can see that it's playing out in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina and some of the other states as well. Horror as veterans' bodies are carved up and sold for parts without permission from families. Texas medical examiners' offices in Dallas and Tarrant County sent the remains of 2,350 people to the body donation program at the University of North Texas Health Science Center in Fort Worth. UNT leadership claimed to have been unaware that the body program was routinely shipping unclaimed remains, including those of U.S. military veterans, across state lines. Hundreds of other corpses were collected from nursing homes, hospital beds, and homeless encampments and sold on the open market. UNT rented out the body parts for a profit, often without consent of the families of the deceased. UNT charged $1,400 for whole bodies. Heads went for $649, torsos for $900. UNT cleared $2.5 million per year by leasing body parts to medical groups. The program has saved the Dallas Medical Examiner's Office money because it no longer has to bury the poor. UNT has suspended the program and fired the officials who led it. Yeah, but look how much money they got. My guess is they didn't give the money back. Why would they? Isn't that insane? Complete insanity. That's on needtoknow.news. And then this one as well. U.S. government agencies found Israel was blocking Gaza aid. No kidding. Blinken ignored them to keep weapons flowing. U.S. Agency for International Development and the U.S. State Department Refugee Bureau concluded this spring that Israel had deliberately blocked deliveries of food and medicine into Gaza, where hunger, disease, and displacement have wreaked havoc on the civilian population. That's because they're bombing them to no end. Although U.S. law requires the government to stop arms shipments to countries that prevent the delivery of U.S.-backed aid, Blinken ignored the findings and told Congress Israel was not restricting humanitarian assistance, helping to keep weapons flowing into the Israeli military to continue its assault on Gaza. A huge shipment of flour that would have fed over 1.5 million Gazans for over 5 months was withheld by Israel, and aid workers were killed. Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, Israel was too busy killing everybody that was trying to help, trying to get in there and help. So yeah, and then the numbers that I heard earlier in the week, you know, the official numbers are 47,000 dead Gazans, Palestinians, and that is only I would say the official numbers. They're saying that they can't get in some of the apartment buildings that have been flattened, pancaked. They can't get in there to recover any of the bodies because they keep getting bombed. So they put their own lives at risk when they're trying to go in and recover bodies. So the real estimates here are between 100 and 200,000 Palestinians dead, not 40,000. That's the number that's being thrown around all the time. And how many Israelis died on October 7th and since then? It's just amazing. It's just amazing, the double standard here. It's okay when Israel does it, but no one else. So that's on needtoknow.news. And then the top 3 headlines on technocracy.news. OpenAI, as we knew it, is dead. Now it's a loose cannon in the hands of a megalomaniac technocrat. Sam Altman is a technocrat who plays the long game. When he first got involved with OpenAI in 2015, he jockeyed to take the helm in 2019, but he was constrained by a board of directors. By 2023, the board saw through him and ousted him. Then the real Sam Altman appeared as he clawed his way back to power, kicked the directors off the board, and reconstituted another board subservient to him. So, interesting, huh? So that's the whole ChatGPT thing. That's who owns that. OpenAI. AI's ominous split away from human thinking. While you still have some reasoning power left, you should consider this deeply philosophical question. Does AI think the way humans think? The only way you might think that is based on language, where AI is giving you answers in your own language. But what if AI creates its own digital language to explain the world and everything in it? Communicating with you will be like a speed bump, even an inconvenience. Why would it bother? Artificial thinking is not human thinking. Yes, very true. And then the resurgence of technocracy in China. Measuring the ebb and flow of technocrats in China's political structure over the years is instructive. However, this article misses the mark. The technocrats are not a cohesive political force with a shared ideology and group identity. Yet technocrats have engineered every economic and social initiative in China since Deng Xiaoping, from the massive Belt and Road Project to its social credit system, which of course they're trying to bring here. So that's the top 3 articles on technocracy.news. And I found this link to from revolver.news. I thought it was kind of interesting. It's a bit long, but it's worth a read, I think. I'll just read the first little bit here, and you guys can follow up with it if you're interested. This is from a person who is a former Democrat, apparently, MC Armstrong. To the Democrats, this is my career suicide note. This is this MC Armstrong talking. This is my career suicide note, but it's also a thank you from someone who is done with careerism. I'm a lifelong member of your party, and I'm voting for Trump. Why? It's not just your industrial scale censorship or your endless wars, the fact that you disenfranchised millions of Kennedy voters through lawfare. If that were all I had, it would be sufficient in terms of conscience and rage. But there's more to this story than anger. Your hatred and censorship has taught me to admire Trump and love my fellow working class Americans, and for that, I thank you. This vote is for all the traumatized people who have been canceled and banished just for saying no to the establishment. This vote is for the surveyor, the farmer, the HVAC man, the nurse, the hairstylist, the deadhead, the veteran, and my fellow adjunct professors who have told me their stories about being bullied by the Democrats and their friends and family and their colleagues at work. This is for the young black woman in my class last year who, on the day of Kamala Harris's visit to the campus, said, "You're going to hate me, Dr. Armstrong, but I'm not going. I'm voting for Trump." Why would she think that I would hate her for the way she votes? What has happened to our country? Somehow Trump has changed my mind. Where I once saw a cartoon white supremacist, warmonger, and narcissist, I now see the man who negotiated NAFTA and the only president in the 21st century to not start a new war. Where I once saw the pal of the neocons, I now see a man who has awoken from his slumber and disavowed Dick Cheney, George Bush, and John Bolton, even as my own party embraces these, quote, men. Why has the greatest entrepreneur of my generation, Elon Musk, risked his career to side with Trump? Why has the most consequential grassroots environmentalist of my time, Robert Kennedy Jr., sacrificed friends, family, and a reputation to side with the Orange Menace? Why has the most courageous peace activist of the 21st century, Tulsi Gabbard, left our party? Because Tulsi, Bobby, and Elon see what I see. Trump is resilient, and he's risking his life to change the fate of our nation. Trump is transforming the Republican Party into the party of peace, free speech, and the working class. He has converted George Bush's Billionaire Boys Club of Big War, Big Ag, and Big Pharma into a party that cares about public health and embraces regenerative agriculture. Now, I don't think the GOP is all the way there yet, but they're clearly the party that embraces dissent, and dissent, brave speech, is the fuel for evolution. So for the first time in my life, I'm voting Republican in the name of peace in Ukraine and free speech here at home. I'm casting my vote as a Kennedy Democrat for Trump. So I read the whole thing anyway. So that was pretty interesting. I thought it was very telling. You can see just a little microcosm of some of the ways that people are changing their opinions this time around. So yeah, he's definitely, when you're willing to take a bullet for things, it definitely changes the way people see you for sure, I think. So along those lines, let's have a look at this. This is when old Hurricane Harris's teleprompter goes out at the beginning of her speech. And well, she's in Michigan. Says she turns into a floundering mess until it comes back on. You can literally tell the moment that it happened. So let's watch this and see if you can tell when her teleprompter goes off and then comes back on. Pay no attention to her eyes. It's not like her eyes will tell you or anything. Hint, hint.
Remember his number? 32. Today we got 32 days until the election. So 32 days. 32 days. Okay, we got some business to do. All right. 32 days. And we know we will do it. And this is going to be a very tight race until the very end. This is going to be a very tight race until the very end. We are the underdog, and we know we have some hard work ahead.
Yep, you can tell just by looking at her eyes. When the teleprompter kicks back on, then she's able to start speaking again. Pretty funny. Says your life flashes before your eyes because you're physically incapable of doing anything without a script. So true. Pretty funny. Anyway, thought you'd want to see that. That was on Greg Price's Twitter channel here. So let's see here. David Axelrod says the quiet part out loud as Biden blocks ongoing rescue efforts, claims Hurricane Helene victims in North Carolina are mainly Trump voters who will find it hard to vote. And look at the smirk. He's totally okay with that. Totally fine with it. Trump voters who are still alive will find it hard to vote. I would rephrase that just a little. Obama-Harris whisperer David Axelrod, host of the Axe Files podcast, said the quiet part out loud as the Biden regime blocks ongoing rescue operations in North Carolina. Axelrod said Hurricane Helene victims in North Carolina are mainly Trump voters who will find it hard to vote in the 2024 election. Hence, the reason it was steered to North Carolina and Florida before that, and also South Georgia, and also, where else did it hit? Parts of South Carolina, just in Tennessee, East Tennessee. So, yeah. Hundreds of people are still missing. I think it's in the thousands. Search and recovery efforts were delayed because Joe Biden was lounging at the beach last weekend, and Harris was busy fundraising in California. Yes, they just couldn't be bothered by the little people. She was busy parading around in her $62,000 Tiffany necklace, remember? We looked at that a week or two ago on this show. Anyway, so that is on the Gateway Pundit. And then another interesting Twitter post here. This is Benny Johnson's channel on there. Another person that I follow. Breaking: FEMA whistleblowers allege agency misappropriated funds amid Hurricane Helene disaster, withheld pre-disaster aid, and left first responders and service members waiting in hotels with deployment orders. So here is the letter. This is a letter from Matt Gaetz to Mayorkas. So, yeah, FEMA whistleblowers allege agency misappropriated funds. No kidding. So it's just getting worse and worse with the whole hurricane thing. Deanne Criswell, the head of the U.S. FEMA, says that she made equity her priority. Then FEMA held DEI training, saying the U.S. is rooted in extreme violence and white supremacy in almost every institution, meaning woke activists have hijacked FEMA. So there's a video embedded here. It says, thanks for reporting from Ben Wilson at the Free Beacon. We know that FEMA held a series of DEI trainings, one of which claimed that the U.S. is rooted in extreme violence, and the established systems of the U.S. require oppression of subjugated people. That's right. You can only be oppressed if your skin is white. We all know this by now. So that's on the Threadreader app, Threadreader website. So kind of interesting. And then another X post that I found was pretty interesting. Reports that Mission Hospital in Asheville, North Carolina, was told today that they will be the morgue for body recovery. As of a few days ago, there were reports of 900 plus bodies at the hospital that haven't been identified. There are also reports of babies and children washing up in the river, and more reports of bodies in trees. Yes, I've heard that from more than one source. So sad. An insurance agent teammate went to drop off supplies in Asheville and set up relief tents yesterday. While setting up, they saw 4 babies, 3 children, as well as adult bodies that were recovered from the mud in the trees. National Guard member Bryant, she's a National Guard service member, Bryant, has also mentioned that they are seeing dead children. Those doing rescue operations are traumatized, and many survivors of the storm are suffering from survivor's guilt. Yeah, many people saw their neighbors get washed away and family members killed and all kinds of stuff. It's going to be quite a mess for a long, long time around over there, East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. So anyway, this video explains kind of that plus more. So, yeah, and I don't want to overplay these videos because I'm sure some of you guys have seen these videos, but this kind of sums it up. This is more or less what's going on there. I posted this on my Facebook page a few days ago, but it's very, very accurate. Got the helicopter dropping the migrants on the roof of the house instead of helping. So anyway, I thought we would take a look at this short video. This gives you a little taste of at least Chimney Rock, that area. There's been a lot of reporting, and I don't think it's true, that the government came in and basically said, we're going to confiscate your land and we're going to basically just bulldoze everything, and the bodies aren't getting picked up. That was some of the stories, some of the things that's being misreported. I think these types of stories are being done on purpose to make the alternative media look bad, if you ask me, so that it gives the fake mainstream media and the powers that be even more of an excuse to shut us down for misinformation. So let's take a look at what this guy on the ground in the Chimney Rock area says.
I'm in the middle of Chimney Rock. I just talked to the police there because they're working on the roads. They don't want me down here, obviously, but I'll just give you guys an idea of how it looks. There's this big conspiracy going around that this is becoming eminent domain. Bodies are getting pushed around and the government's taking control of this area. I just was clarified with local authorities that's not happening. They've only found 1 body in Lake Lure, and yeah, I don't really see anybody being pushed around, and it doesn't stink here. The only dead thing I found was a horse. So here's what Chimney Rock looks like for you guys. Chimney Rock with Logan. He's been clearing the streets with these guys. We don't smell anything, do we?
No. If the smell that was here was more than likely the 50-something propane tanks they took out of the river. Propane's got a pretty bad smell. There's not bodies in the road, no.
Yeah. There's no looting?
No looting. No.
You can't even get in here.
No, if you look around, there's definitely not people getting robbed by gunpoint either. There's more police and military in here than there is workers or people live here, to be honest with you. It's just a lot of chaos. Everything's ruined. There's a lot more positive than negative going on right now, besides everything that happened.
So I think because people can't see what's going on in here, someone just created some crazy story and put it out there and it went viral.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. It's sad what happened and everything, but we're getting it. We're fixing it. and to the extent of what they said, that's very far-fetched. Very far-fetched.
And I walked all the way down here to find out what it looked like down here, and it's just destruction like it is everywhere else. There's nothing crazy going on here. So thanks for doing this cleanup, man.
Of course.
I appreciate it, and thanks for answering.
Yes, of course.
So there you have it. Right from a person who is literally on the ground right there. So that is hopefully going to put one of those types of stories to rest. Although, obviously there's some truth in some of the things that's going around as well. So, but that's good news. Hopefully that they're not going to be Lahaina 2.0, although from the FEMA standpoint, it might very well be. But it doesn't look to me like it's being taken over by the government, at least not right there at the moment. So we will see how things continue to play out. All right, let's keep moving here. We do have quite a bit of Helene information, or as I say, Hurricane Harris. But there's other things to talk about as well, so I'll try and cover a multitude of things tonight. Flight slams on brakes mid-takeoff at JFK to avoid another plane. So another airplane near mishap here. London-bound flight was forced to slam on its brakes mid-takeoff to avoid another plane on the runway at JFK Airport Thursday night. North Atlantic Airways Flight Z0702 was heading out of the busy Queens Airport shortly after 6 p.m. when it had to suddenly abort takeoff because of a potential obstruction on the runway, meaning another plane. The potential obstruction was another flight that was about to take off around the same time. So are we talking DEI again here? Is that what's going on? So it says data on Flight Radar 24 shows the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner hitting 87 knots or 100 miles per hour before abruptly slowing down and pulling a quick left onto the taxiway. The flight eventually took off again a short time later and landed 6 hours later at London's Gatwick Airport. So luckily no one was hurt, but another near miss. And why is that? Are the airport workers just overworked? Is that what's going on? The air traffic controllers, are they overworked? Or is it a case of DEI perhaps? No way to know, but that's kind of what it leans towards if you ask me. I don't know if you guys happen to see the big debate between Vance and Walz, but this picture pretty much sums it up. I don't think we need to even say anything else. But that's pretty much it. And while hurricane victims suffer and die, Joe and Jill catch some rays on the beach because they're so overworked. What's happening in Florida, Tennessee, and hardest hit North Carolina is horrific. But what makes this biblical level storm even worse is the Harris-Biden regime's cold, indifferent reaction. While Americans suffer, die, and fight to survive, Joe and Jill are lounging on the beach, soaking up rays. Meanwhile, Harris, the woman running for president without earning a single primary vote, is busy schmoozing with donors to fund her flailing campaign. It's a complete and utter disgrace. Yeah, Jack Posobiec put this picture out on his Twitter. Your government hates you. But they just don't care about the optics because Joe's done. He's done. Says, are you effing kidding me? The U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, as Biden calls him, Buttigieg, tells Americans to stop using drones to help victims of Helene. They're using drones to find survivors. Yeah, what a dipstick. But again, another DEI person in place. And even though his skin color is the wrong persuasion, his sexual preferences and what he does behind closed doors is the right persuasion, so he gets the job. See how that works? Now, Tucker Carlson and others have said that it's come out that old Pete Buttigieg is not gay at all. So imagine if the homo community finds out that Buttigieg is faking being homosexual. What do you think would happen to this guy? I mean, they have come out, the trans community and some of the community have come out pretty recently as being probably the most in the world. per capita. What do you think they would do to Pete Buttigieg if they found out he was lying about being gay? I think that's a pretty big story. He's probably doing that just to get a job and just to get a leg up in the woke Biden administration, if you know what I mean. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Pretty wild. Update, Trump rally in Butler, PA was absolutely massive. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but old Trump did the Butler redo 2.0 yesterday, and man, it was massive. It was way bigger than the first time. And Musk also was there in person speaking to the crowd. He gave about a 5 or 10 minute speech somewhere in there. This is a picture of Trump hugging family members of firefighter Corey Carpatore, who was fatally shot at the Trump rally on July 13th in Butler. And Trump invited the doctor who tried to save Corey. It turns out that the doctor was a former Democrat. So, pretty wild, huh? There's old Elon. And then here's the crowd. I don't know if you guys saw any of this, but keep in mind, Kamala Harris can barely fill up a small gymnasium, which is basically what Biden was looking at back in 2020. And have a look at this. Well, there's more than just a few people there. What was that, 100,000, you suppose? A view from Trump's plane as he flies over the rally. So you can see it there. Amazing. Amazing. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. That's on Revolver. And then one more on that site. Stunning new clip shows a confused Biden heartlessly disrespecting every hurricane-ravaged American citizen. There he is. So, this was reported again, Greg Price on Twitter. What do the states in the storm zone need after what you saw today? That was the question. Biden says, oh, storm zone? I didn't know which storm you're talking about.
What do the states in the storm zone need, Mr. President?
Okay.
What do the states in the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about. They're getting everything they need. They're very happy across the board.
They're very happy across the board if they're not dead and they haven't seen their house float down the river. Oh, storm zone. I didn't know which storm you're talking about. Yep. Again, stolen elections have consequences. That's what I have to say to that. ReclaimTheNet.org. Some of the headlines on that site. Digital ID schemes make strides in Congress despite rights advocate opposition. Yep, they really want their digital ID, don't they? EU uses Digital Services Act to probe YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat algorithms for censorship compliance. So the EU wants to make sure they're complying. SIM locking and corporate control, how phone networks keep you stranded in a crisis. Verizon's latest network outage leaves millions grappling with SOS mode and reveals just how little control we have over our own devices. I think on purpose, don't you? Melania reveals she was debanked and banned from her business email provider. Hillary Clinton calls for stricter online censorship as establishment fears losing total control. Yes, just a moment of actual truth out of old witch Hillary's mouth. We'll look at that in just a minute. I've got it pulled up here. The LibertyBeacon.com. Harris criticized for post announcing U.S. aid to people of Lebanon. They get the aid. Kamala is touting giving money to the people of Lebanon while stiff-arming the humanitarian crisis in North Carolina. Let's see. Harris was criticized for a post on Saturday. It was a post on X, announcing the U.S. would provide nearly $157 million in additional assistance to the people of Lebanon. That's all? Maybe she means $157 million per family. That might be what she means. $157 million in aid to people in Lebanon would be for essential needs, such as food, shelter, water, protection, and sanitation. Harris' post came a day after U.S. Secretary of State Blinken declared that the U.S. would provide people in Lebanon with almost $157 million in aid. And I feel sorry for the people in Lebanon. They are being ravaged by the criminal state of Israel. I do. I feel sorry for them, but they don't need our tax dollars. And certainly not at the expense of the people who really need it in North Carolina, in East Tennessee, and Florida. So, yeah. So rightfully so, she's being criticized for coming out talking about Lebanon. You would think that she would at least have the common sense to not even make it publicly, but no, she puts it out there for the world to see because they hate us. Are we all criminals now? Well, that's a rhetorical question at this point. If Western nations replace their respective fiat currencies with digital versions, would organized crime disappear? No, it would just be the government would own all the organized crime because they're the main organized criminals. So it says if Western nations replace their respective fiat currencies with digital versions, as many advocates for individual liberty fear they will do soon, would organized crime disappear? The answer is no. If the answer is no, why not? Don't human traffickers and international drug cartels depend upon a supply of paper currency that they can move back and forth across borders and launder through unrelated businesses for future use? If there were no money except for the digital ones and zeros created and monitored by national governments, surely major criminal organizations would have no way to operate and nowhere to hide. Aha, that's why they want to do it this way. Because if that's the case, then the government will be involved in all of these things. See, it won't stop the criminality. It's just that the government will become a partner in it. A partner in crime, literally. How could prostitution and corner drug sales survive with a system that traces all digital transactions in real time? How could the black market trades in illicit commerce between sanctioned nations continue if Western central banks actively surveil each digital dollar that changes hands? Surely the imposition of government-mandated digital currencies would usher in a more peaceful planet that is relatively free of crime, right? If you're still not convinced, let me suggest what might be tripping you up. Your instincts tell you that criminals will find a way to skirt any future digital surveillance. Somehow human ingenuity will succeed in creating effective workarounds to government-imposed central bank digital currencies. The sale of illicit narcotics, weapons, and other banned materials will continue around the world because, at the end of the day, humans adapt and overcome whatever obstacles stand in their way. Crime will continue to exist because criminals will continue to exist, and criminals will continue to exist because in every generation some faction of the human race behaves immorally, disregards social mores, or flat out refuses to obey. If this is your conclusion, and I think it is the correct one, then don't ordinary non-criminal citizens also have a choice about what the future holds? Oh, I don't think so. I'm adding that. If you believe that criminals are wily enough to fashion workarounds to totalitarian government, then shouldn't you expect defenders of liberty to be similarly inventive? If so, then perhaps our worries about the future do not revolve around the idea that ordinary citizens will have no way to evade and overcome government tyranny, but rather that the path to doing so might make many of us criminals too. And a moral law is no law at all, which is to say, whenever governments use the force of law to coerce citizens to do immoral things, moral citizens will choose to become criminals. This is more difficult than it sounds. And it goes on. But I would maintain what I said earlier, that the crimes, the criminality, will just bring the government into it. It won't put a stop to it. So then the government rakes in even more money. So are we all criminals? Yes, according to the government, because they hate us. And they want a piece of the action. Never forget that. The West aims to bring Russians to their knees, according to the Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. Remember him? He said that recently, and he would not be wrong. Robert Fico, or Fico, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but he's a guy that they almost killed a few months back. Was shot like 5 times. But yeah, he's telling more truth here. That's why they don't want him around. The West wants to bring the Russians to their knees, and they want to sell off the current nation state of Russia into about, they want to divide it up and sell it off into like 40-some different little pieces. That's what came out a few months back when the map was shown of how they were going to carve Russia up and sell it to the highest bidders. But anyway, I think FICO is exactly right. That's on RT.com. And so is this one. Transgender football team, meaning soccer, not American football, beaten 19-0 in debut game. The Spanish club Phoenix FC has become the first all-trans squad to join a soccer federation in Europe. Might be the last one, too. They just got pummeled 19-0. In soccer, that's more of like an American football type score, or a really high-scoring baseball game. Total insanity. But, boy, they sure love each other, don't they? In more ways than one. They're too busy watching each other's arse run down the field, if you ask me, instead of playing the actual game. Just a guess. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. PeoplesVoice.tv. Some of the headlines: FDA and CDC block efforts to end fluoridation. Block efforts to end fluoridation of U.S. water supply. Yep. Been talking a lot about fluoridation lately. And guess what? The Fraud and Death Administration and the Center for Disease Creation do not want the fluoride taken out of the water because they want you to be dumb. And dead. Dumb and dead. Netflix loses millions of subscribers after co-founder endorses Kamala. So just keep it up, Netflix. Way to go. Crooked Hillary. Again, I mentioned this earlier. Social media must censor Pizzagate or we lose control. Hurricane Helene exposed as engineered weapon as part of elite's land grab project. So there may be some land grabbing involved. We don't know yet, but we saw the story a little while ago, saying that the one story at least isn't true. FEMA inspector warns $750 disaster relief is a loan. Failure to repay will lead to property seizure. I've also heard rumors that particular thing is not true. I'm not really sure. I'll just leave it up to you guys to try and figure that one out. But yeah, this is, according to this, they're saying it's a loan and you have to repay the $750. Who knows? I wouldn't put it past them. But the website that I saw earlier, I think it was on FEMA.gov, I think that's where it was, said that it's not a loan, it's a grant. So I don't know. Take it for what it's worth. Exposed, school districts transition confuse children behind parents' backs. School districts are transitioning confused kids. Yep, I mean, why would the parents need to know? Thousands of Germans protest against sending weapons to Ukraine and Israel. Imagine that. SpaceX engineer in North Carolina says FEMA is actively blocking relief shipments, which something Musk himself was tweeting about the other day. So those are the top stories on People's Voice. Then here's this one. Crooked Hillary. Social media must censor or we lose control. Speaking with this person on CNN last week, this is the quote, we should be, in my view, repealing something called Section 230, which gave platforms on the internet immunity because they were thought to be just pass-throughs when they shouldn't be judged for content that is posted, Clinton said. But we now know that that was an overly simple view, that if the platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control. So she's admitting that they have total control. And it's not just the social and psychological effects, it's real harm. She means the social and psychological effects and harm to her and people just like her. Because the rest of us want free speech. But not Hillary. Nope, she doesn't want us to have free speech. Only she gets to have free speech. Report U.S. offering Israel compensation to moderate Iran strikes. It's on information liberation. Trump urges Israel to hit Iranian nuclear sites, slams Biden for urging restraint. I think that is a bad choice. Bad choice. Again, what evidence is there that Iran has done any of the stuff that they're being accused of, other than trying to keep Israel from blowing them sky high? Senator Graham pivots to Israel after being asked about the hurricane victims from his own state. Or I'm not sure if he's South Carolina, but yeah, he doesn't want to hear about North Carolina hurricane victims. Nope. He only wants to talk about Israel and how terrible things are going for them. Because they're always the victim, always. Boris Johnson found spying device in his bathroom after Netanyahu visit. I wonder where it was. In the toilet? Not that old Netanyahu did it, but pretty funny that there would be one in there. And why was he looking for it? FEMA running out of funds for hurricane victims after DHS allocates record $454 million to secure mostly Jewish institutions. Yeah, we have to make sure that Israel's safe. Israel is safe and effective. Yep. And then you guys probably remember this from last week. The worker strike on the East Coast says East Coast dock workers return to work after strike. So yeah, they're back working again. At least there's a temporary reprieve. And some people I heard the other day that were giving Harris and Biden credit for this. I don't think they had anything to do with it, if you ask me. It says a union representing about 45,000 dock workers on Thursday said it agreed to resume work after a 3-day strike affecting dozens of ports from Maine to Texas. International Longshoremen's Association union representing the dock workers announced an agreement suspending the strike until at least January 15th. In a joint statement with the U.S. Maritime Alliance, the industry group that represents the port operators, the union said it had reached a tentative agreement on wages. The two sides agreed to negotiate the other outstanding issues in January. Well, the other outstanding issues, the main one that I know about, is automation. They're worried about being replaced by machines. And as a legitimate concern because they're already doing that in ports worldwide. And I think it's probably ridiculous to think that they won't be replaced. But, yeah, I mean, a 50 to 62% pay increase over a 6-year period. Are you getting that with your job? 50 to 62% over 6 years? I haven't had a raise in, well, I'm self-employed, but I haven't had a raise in, I don't know, what's it been, like probably 20 years? Something like that. I've been in business 28 years, and I literally haven't given myself a raise or done anything as far as changing my prices and what I'm doing as far as the mastering goes since I started 28 years ago. And the hourly stuff that I do, I think I bumped up my rate about 20 years ago. It's literally been that long. So yeah, 50 to 62% over a 6-year period must be nice. There you go. And speaking of which, you can see it definitely pays off because this is the union boss. The union boss behind the port strikes in his sprawling New Jersey mansion, complete with a Bentley and a 5-car garage and a guest house. So he's really slumming it, you can tell. And here he is here with his $1,200 sunglasses and his $10,000 gold necklace. He must be taking lessons from Kamala Harris herself because she wears $62,000 necklaces. This guy's wearing a $10,000 necklace, telling us about how poor he is. Oh yeah, $1,200 shades. Who has $1,200 shades? People with money to burn, that's who. I thought this was kind of interesting. It says IDF vows to strike heavily across the Middle East after Iranian assault, remembering that it was the IDF and Israel that started this whole thing. Israel is initiating the, quote, Greater Israel Project as indicated on the IDF patch. What is the Greater Israel Project, you might ask? You can see the patch right here. It's this shape. It's this shape right here. This is Greater Israel. What is Greater Israel? Well, it combines 100% of Palestine, 100% of Jordan, 100% of Lebanon, 70% of Syria, 50% of Iraq, and 33% of Saudi Arabia and Egypt up to the Nile River. That is Greater Israel. That's what they're trying to do. This is a land grab, folks. You can tell by the patch on their arm. They're not even hiding it. So this is why they're trying to bomb all their neighbors back to the Stone Age. They want the land. And they think they're God's chosen people. No. They're nothing more than thugs and mafiosos. They're literally just stealing people's land. That's what's going on. Greater Israel. Look it up if you want. We need to help the hurricane victims. Sorry, we're low on cash. Fine, I'll do it myself. Try it, and you will be arrested. Yep, if only it wasn't true. There's something nefarious going on in the mountains of western North Carolina and East Tennessee where hurricane victims are being left to die. Stories emerge of bodies washing up in rural areas. I don't have any doubt that that's happening. I mean, if you've ever been there, which I've been to this area several times, to the Asheville area, and yeah, it's beautiful as you could ever imagine, and I could see where people, could just be caught without warning and then killed from mudslides or just vast amounts of water. What was it? I think the numbers I heard was like 40 or 42 trillion gallons of water got dumped in this area. What is that, like a quarter of the Gulf of Mexico got dumped onto North Carolina? Is that what happened? I don't know if it's a quarter, but it's certainly a vast amount of water. It's a heart-wrenching story developing in the hills of western North Carolina and East Tennessee. Stories of starving, dehydrated people being left to die, and lots of bodies washing up in rural areas, many of them unrecognizable. One such story comes from Nate and Katie Kramer from Parrottsville, Tennessee, just east of Newport, Tennessee, between Knoxville and Asheville, which that area through there is absolutely beautiful. Of course, now it's completely wrecked and ravaged, but it says that Nate related YouTube video his heartbreaking experience of finding a body on Thursday washed up near their small farming homestead. Wow. So anyway, there's lots and lots of these types of stories going around. I've seen several of them on Twitter X, and this is definitely information that needs to get out because the mainstream media is barely reporting on it. So you can see another very effective meme. U.S. government, Ukrainian and Israeli families, yep, they get the helping hand. But the American families get the finger. I hate to have to report these types of things, but it's just the truth. Exclusive victims of Hurricane Harris confirm federal government is purposely blocking rescuers and stealing aid in an attempt to keep deep red areas from voting. Which, I don't know, if you guys were here last week and the hurricane had just happened, I was saying then, at least as far as Florida goes, I could tell that was what was going on because I knew at that point, just like many of you guys did, that the hurricane was being steered, it was being intensified before it ever hit land. It's obvious they're trying to take out Republican areas because that northern Big Bend area, Panhandle area, that whole northern part of Florida is very red, and meaning Republican voters, and they're trying to suppress the vote. I was assuming mostly Florida, but I didn't know how bad things were in North Carolina yet. And that makes total sense, though. I think mostly the hurricane attacked the red areas in those states. For the most part, it's going to affect the election in a negative way for Trump, if you ask me. Will it be enough to change things? I don't know. There's no way to know. I'm not sure how many people, won't be able to vote or were killed. So there's no way to know this, really. But anyway, article on InfoWars, and then another one that I found, another meme. So far this year, the U.S. has given $24.4 billion to Ukraine, $11.3 billion to Israel, $1.9, basically $2 billion to Ethiopia, $1.6 billion to Jordan, $1.4 billion to Egypt, $1.1 billion to Afghanistan. So just all this money. $1.1 billion to Somalia, $1 billion to Yemen, who I thought we were at war with, and almost $1 billion to the Congo, and almost $1 billion to Syria. But only $9,000 per illegal immigrant that has entered the U.S. So that should be $1 million as well, $1 million a person. So obviously that number's low. I'm kidding, of course. And Americans who've lost everything to Hurricane Helene will be getting $750 courtesy of FEMA. And that's still $50 more than the Lahaina victims got. So consider yourself lucky, and they hate us. Yeah, dozens of meat processing plants expected to shut down under new EPA rules. Pretty convenient. Food prices, especially meat and poultry, have skyrocketed in the past 4 years and could be exacerbated further next year when new EPA rules for meat processors go into effect. U.S. Department of Agriculture's food price outlook for September reported that beef and veal prices have increased for 6 straight months, and they predicted that it will rise 5.2% overall in 2024. Poultry prices also rose, although by a smaller percentage. Next year could see still higher meat and poultry prices at the grocery store because the EPA and their proposal is expected to put some meat processors out of business, resulting in potential job losses and supply chain disruptions. EPA announced the proposed rule change governing effluent or wastewater limits for meat and poultry processors in January of this year, followed by public comment in the spring. Rule goes into effect in August 2025. Proposal has been met with oppositions from dozens of states, industry stakeholders, and policy experts who fear it will harm the industry and the food supply and consumers. Yeah, I can't imagine that it wouldn't. So get ready for the meat prices to go up even more in the next year or so. If the EPA has their way, at least. Natural news articles, top stories. Western North Carolina has the world's richest lithium, purest quartz deposits. So quartz is not something that you really hear much about. It's mostly about the lithium, but it says it's Hurricane Helene, a land grab by DOD to steal these valuable resources. Well, we just don't know yet. It might be. Grid apocalypse. Power restoration in western NC, upstate South Carolina, could take months. 360 substations are down indefinitely. And I heard that they sent a lot of the repair type equipment over to Ukraine. So now we don't have them. FEMA doesn't have enough money to get through hurricane season after spending $640 million on migrants. Israel promising new attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities that Biden says he won't back. Jerusalem Post publishes, then removes, an article claiming that Israel has a biblical mandate to conquer Lebanon. The Greater Israel Plan. And then P. Diddy's sex trafficking ring allegedly involves the hotel, banking, and pharmaceutical industries. How about that? Probably CEOs from lots of those types of companies. Hurricane Helene victims call out to Biden and Kamala, there's no government aid, none, zero. Which is something we've been covering at length here tonight. Iran warns Israel not to respond to ballistic missile attack. Any miscalculation will lead to your sudden collapse. Wow. Jerusalem Post celebrates how Jews influence the media, naming top Jews in government, media, entertainment, and finance. But we're not supposed to notice that, and yet they're out there naming them. I wonder if Jewish people, or I guess you could just say Zionists, I wonder if they can be anti-Semitic to themselves. Have you ever thought about that? They never get accused of it. Only everybody else does. If you ever challenge anything they ever say, you're anti-Semitic. Election officials now admit that voting will be a real challenge in 25 North Carolina counties devastated by Helene. The vast majority of those most affected will be Republican and independent voters, and now a second hurricane is bearing down on conservative counties in Florida, expected to make landfall Wednesday. Yeah. So another storm is headed towards Florida. Headlines on Wine Press News. Norway mandates businesses accept small cash payments in reversal of cashless policies. Conspiracies circulate as people wonder if Hurricane Helene was used to seize lithium and mineral deposits. Majorca says FEMA is running out of money. Gives $750 for victims, but billions for other countries. Well, all they have to do is rezone North Carolina into Ukraine, and then they'll really care about what happens in North Carolina. Or maybe they could import some Ukrainians, then they'll care about it. Or some Haitians. U.S. port strike delayed. ILA reaches temporary deal. Suspends strikes. Yeah, they were realizing pretty quickly how bad the optics looked on that whole thing. So I'm glad they didn't strike for very long. But I don't think the story's over. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens in January. Oh, goody. President of the ILA union leading U.S. port strike receives the Pope's blessing. I wonder if that's the guy with the $1,200 shades and the $10,000 necklace and the 5-car garage and the Bentley. I imagine the Pope probably does like him. All right, so that's the top headlines on Wine Press News. And then, let's see, Gateway Pundit. I thought I would just mostly look at the headlines here. I didn't have a lot of separate articles pulled up, just a couple. Biden savage for waiting 10 days to send troops with advanced technological assets to Helene victims in North Carolina. Breaking, Iran cancels all flights. Well, that's we know that's not really the case at this point. Another earthquake rattles Southern California. State breaks a record for most 4.0 magnitude tremblers in a year. Igniting fears of the big one. Talking about NASA being woke. Yep. FEMA abandons devastated NC town residents. Nobody's even bringing in supplies except civilians. It's an ongoing theme. So those are some of the top headlines on here. And then the two that I did pull up. 28 cars wiped out in biggest NASCAR crash ever. Nearly the entire field involved in a crash at Talladega. I don't really watch racing. I just thought that was pretty wild that most of the cars that were in the race got wiped out. 28 cars in one of the biggest car crashes ever. And then activists post they are lying to you about Hurricane Helene. No kidding. It's a Michael Schneider article, which we all know they're lying to us about that. But that's on Activist Post. Some of the other headlines on there: homeschooling numbers continue to climb after the according to a report. It's good news. UN Pact for the Future draws concerns over CCP backing. I'm sure the Chinese Communist Party loves what the UN's trying to do. Because it's basically, they're the model. China's the model. Globalresearch.ca, from agrarianism to transhumanism, the long march to dystopia. Thought that was kind of a interesting headline. The total demolition of the previous forms of existence is underway. How one comes into the world, biological sex education, relationships, the family, even the diet. It's about to become synthetic. I'd say it was slowly becoming that way already. We are currently seeing an acceleration in the corporate consolidation of the entire global agri-food chain. The big data conglomerates, including Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, and Google, have joined traditional agribusiness giants such as Corteva, Bayer, Cargill, and Syngenta in a quest to impose their model of food and agriculture on the world. Yeah, Facebook and Google food. Yum, yum. But talks about the Gates Foundation and BlackRock and Vanguard. So it's all the usual suspects. Pretty interesting article, I think, and that's on Global Research. And then top headlines on Not the Bee. We mentioned the Hillary one a little bit ago. New Jersey man faces charges for calling 911 after someone lit a scented candle. So yeah, that's a major emergency, obviously. Appalachia has gone dark and criminals are pouring over the border, but the Homeland Security chief had time to go luxury shopping. So this is Mayorkas doing some shopping while all of this is happening. So yes, he's out there shopping with Kamala and her Tiffany's necklace. What else? Look at the swanky cribs that migrants are getting for free in Maine. FEMA had lots of money for them. Fully furnished apartments. Yep. So that's on notthebee.com, just some of the headlines on there. Watch, government nowhere to be found in hurricane disaster area. So this is, I saw this guy's video earlier. It's got some interesting, very colorful language in it. This guy is a trucker. His video was pretty interesting as well. I don't know if he's probably an independent trucker, but yeah, I mean, who knows? Just one guy's, yeah, it's all a plan. Just one guy's perspective on what's happening, but I don't think he's wrong. I think that there's probably literally no shipments headed that direction to help. So they are in full penalize the Trump voters mode, if you ask me, and make sure the Trump voters can't vote or are just dead. They don't care. Again, they hate us. FEMA Public Affairs Chief locks her X account amid outrage over agency's disastrous hurricane response. FEMA Public Affairs Director says her whole job is to talk to the public. Jacqueline Rothenberg, interesting name, locked her X account Saturday amid widespread outrage over the agency's disastrous hurricane response in affected states. Biden-Harris appointee, officially, is what she is. So that explains things. So, yep, she's locking her X account. You can't know what she thinks. So, speaking of Biden criminals, here's another one. Karine Jean-Pierre. Video resurfaces of Jean-Pierre talking about FEMA funding for illegals. She denied this week that FEMA is using relief efforts to resettle migrants. Video has resurfaced on social media of White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre talking about FEMA funding for the resettlement of illegal immigrants. The clip flatly contradicts Jean-Pierre's denials to the press this week that such funding was being provided by the agency. Again, going back to what I've said many, many times, this is the gaslighting administration. It's all they know how to do. So, yep. Anyway, she'll tell you all day long that that's not what's happening, even though that is what's happening, and she's admitted that that's what was happening. So, yeah, funding from FEMA to the resettlement of illegal immigrants. Speaking of illegal immigrants, well, look what I found. Little interesting tidbit. Karine Jean-Pierre she was born in France, but she's the daughter of Haitian immigrants. Haitian immigrants. And who's been running the show over in Springfield, Ohio? Cooking up all the cats and dogs they can find. And doing voodoo rituals. That would be Haitian immigrants, or migrants, or illegals, or whatever other word you want to use. So she's from there. I wonder if they've gotten special treatment, and I wonder if there's more being brought into the U.S. because she's of that persuasion. Do you think? Just a question. Pretty interesting if you ask me. Which also makes me wonder, does she have her own set of voodoo powers? Oh, Corinne Jean-Pierre. Is she a practicer of voodoo? Just a question. I don't know. I'm just asking. Food for thought. All right. VaccineImpact.com. 2,000 killed, over 1 million homeless in Lebanon by American bombs as U.S. gets ready to attack Iran. Are Americans ready for World War III? I don't think we are. Yeah. So, and then Trump's Epstein-provided wife throws him under the bus. Melania releases creepy video supporting full abortion rights. So that's weird. Melania Trump and sex trafficking. So, interesting article over on Vaccine Impact. And then mother who was trafficked in the Epstein network as a child sues Baltimore County CPS for medically kidnapping her child. Panic buying has already started the first day of dock workers strike, closing down half the U.S. ports, which of course that's ended now. Hundreds dead, thousands missing in Appalachia from Hurricane Helene, while National Guard is deployed to Israel instead. The way of Jesus Christ leads out of Jerusalem and the temple, no going back. So those are the top headlines since last week on Vaccine Impact. And then GeoWatch, the subject here is Helene aftermath and Milton is next. October hurricane forecast, brace for the return of big hurricanes, quote unquote. It says Milton expected to become a major hurricane before slamming into Florida. After a perplexing lull in what was scheduled to be the worst hurricane season ever, the storms are now being ramped up. Multiple states are still reeling after the aftermath of Helene, and now Milton is approaching Florida's west coast. What does Hurricane Milton have in store for the Sunshine State? About an overall perspective, this new headline from Time magazine, Planet Earth is in critical condition, and through it all, no major media source is acknowledging the issue of climate engineering. No surprise. So that is the blurb here on geoengineeringwatch.org, and then, of course, we've got Global Alert News for this week. And it's also available on the other platforms that we put it on, not just YouTube, but it's on Rumble and BitChute as well, and then audio version on Spotify. So it's available out there. And then the NOAA scheduled weather map for the next few days, October 12th through the 16th, temperature outlook. So it's this coming week coming up, 12th through the 16th. Going to be pretty warm, above average temps pretty much everywhere except the southeast. I wonder why. Yeah, it's not like they're using chemical ice nucleation on all that moisture from that hurricane, and of course now they've got another one headed that direction. So we will see what transpires. All right, so Israel 365 News. This is another article that I came across that I just wanted to mention. For the first time since the Second Temple, shofar sounded on Temple Mount. Silver trumpet sounded as call to war. So Israel is ready for war. Aren't they always? Israel is basically like the nation state of Lindsey Graham. I mean, they're always ready for war. It says on Thursday, first day of Rosh Hashanah, a group of Jews smuggled a shofarat, which is a ritual ram's horn, onto the Temple Mount, and despite police efforts to stop them, blew all the requisite shofar blasts for the holiday. It should be emphasized that this is most probably the first time since the Second Temple stood that the shofar has sounded at Judaism's holiest site. So how about that? So they are blowing the horn because they are ready for war. But anyways, the Substack is where you need to go to sign up for free to get the links that I send out on Tuesday we'll send out the links and also the YouTube link of the final version of this show, which will be available at some point on Tuesday. So yeah, we'll get that sent out, and then if you're not already on the Substack, then you just go to diamonddisc.substack.com. It's posted in the box in the upper right corner up there, diamonddisc.substack.com, and you type in your email address there. And here is the main page. If you haven't seen this before, the main article, the most recent one, is front and center, and as I add new ones, they go here and the other ones get pushed over to the side. These two right here are the posts from last week, one of which is all of the links, and the other one is the audio podcast version of the show from last week. So that's what those are. And then if you scroll down just a little ways, you'll see the Diamond Report links there, and you'll see everything from Spotify down to Getter. There's a bunch of them. So when I go post this show in its final form, I usually do try and post it on quite a few of those. It's not every single one, but I post links on most of those. So if you're on any of those other platforms, feel free to follow me there. I certainly would appreciate that. Getter, Brighteon Social, Brighteon.io, MeWe, CloutHub, Gab, Minds, Telegram, and so on. There's quite a few video platforms in there as well. So yeah, that is the homepage there on diamonddisc.substack.com. So, and then the store, you guys have seen this before, but I thought I would show that, and every little bit helps. If you want to support this show and help me fund this little show. I'm trying to reach more people. Sharing obviously is one of the best things you can do to help, but if you want to support the show and get some really cool swag, so check out the store, and that link is in the upper right corner up there too. Shop.thediamond.report is what it is. So there's various different products here. We got shirts and hats and mugs and mouse pads and all kinds of stuff. So certainly would appreciate that support. And then you can also support me on Substack if you so choose. So I definitely appreciate that very much. So you know who you are. If you're out there supporting the Diamond Report, definitely appreciate that very much. So yeah, and then this is my day-to-day business, and if you guys don't want to support what I'm doing with the show directly, and you happen to have any friends who are music people, that's what I do day in and day out, is mastering and mixing work, in particular production work, and then also build websites and do things like that as well. So I would appreciate any leads that you can give me on that, because that definitely helps pay the bills, and it helps fund this particular show that you're watching. So if I wasn't doing this stuff, then I wouldn't be doing this show. So anyway, but there's a few examples of some websites and some customer client testimonials and stuff on here as well. So feel free to have a look at that if you want. DiamondDiscAudio.com is what that is. And then definitely follow me on the Diamond Report on Twitter X, the Diamond RPRT. So if you haven't, I know quite a few people actually that don't have a Twitter/X account. I do think it's a good idea, only because it's one of the only free speech platforms that I've found. I don't know anyone who's been censored in any way really since Musk took over. Now there are still some people who have been censored pre-Musk who are still censored now that aren't freed up. So I will give you that. Those people exist. For instance, you can't even input a Brighteon link on Twitter still. So Mike Adams is being censored in a way. I mean, Brighteon is being censored, but he does have his own Twitter account, and he's able to tweet and do things with Twitter X. But in general, I think it's a pretty good platform, and I do think the search engine on there is really good if you're looking for certain videos and things like that. It does seem to work really well. And I found some interesting videos recently. I like to repost things from accounts that I follow. And this one from this lady here in North Carolina was really touching. I won't bother playing it tonight just for sake of time, but it's about 5 minutes long. And then here's another one here. This girl's mother lives in North Carolina, and she's talking about what's going on with the hurricane there as well. So yeah, there's some interesting things that I've found over the last few days. I usually go in there about once every day or every other day or so and find some interesting things to retweet and repost. And then I also put this particular show up on here as well. So it is usually always available. It's generally the YouTube version or the edited version that I put on there. So anyway, that does make its way on there. I also put the links to the uncensored version of the show too. So if you're on Twitter X, please follow there. Certainly appreciate it. The Diamond Report, the Diamond RPRT on Twitter. And then YouTube, many of you guys are on YouTube anyways, but if you're not, you can follow along if you want. It's Take It to the Lord in Prayer on YouTube. My Diamond Disc channel got banned and deleted several years ago, back when the COVID vax was rolled out. So anyway. And then Diamond Disc on Rumble. I'm Diamond Disc, DIAMONDISC on most platforms. So if you guys want to look me up on most of them, that's what I am in general across the board. And again, going back to the Substack post, they're all linked right there. That makes it real easy. And then BitChute as well. The uncensored version of this show will be on Rumble and BitChute and Brighteon at some point tomorrow. And I put it all back together, and we'll get it posted and come up with a thumbnail and come up with a name for it and all of that stuff. So I do all that after the fact. But here are many of the recent shows here. So they're there if you happen to want to watch them and check out what I'm doing. And then this is the free band group that Miss Emily had posted a link for in chat. So feel free to join the band group if you want. The Diamond Report on Band. And it's band.us is the social media company. And they don't censor, which is another really good thing. There's not that many of them that don't censor, but Band I've never had any issues with at all. So band.us/@ the little at sign, and then just the Diamond Report. So feel free to join the group. We'd love to have you, and Miss Emily helps me manage that group, and lots of fun in there. People posting different things that they're looking at, videos and pictures and things like that, memes, all kinds of fun stuff. It's a good way to stay in touch with each other. But I wanted to show you guys a little bit of this just in case you want to go watch the video. So we'll wrap the show up tonight with this as the final piece here. But you guys have probably heard of Maria Z. I think she's doing really good work. And this is a clip of an interview she did with Hope and Tavon, which many of you guys I'm sure know, about the Mark of the Beast technology exposed. So let's close with this. Give me just a second to find the video and cue it up where I wanted to start, and we'll just let this play out for just a few minutes, and then we'll link to it in the Substack post that I do that comes out on Tuesday. But you guys can find it. I'm sure you guys can find Maria Z and watch the video if you want to watch it between now and then. But I thought it was really good. I watched it earlier today. So blessings to you all. Thank you guys for coming back and for tuning in tonight. I certainly appreciate that. And we'll do it again next week. It'll be, what is it? The 13th, Sunday the 13th at 10 p.m. Central is when we'll start, same as this time was. So anyway, blessings to you all, love you all, and have a really great week. We'll see you again real soon.
Well, I know our audience really enjoys the information that you two bring. You're incredibly well researched. You have a presentation for us today, so let's get into that.
Okay, well, we'll call this one Human Augmentation, a New Paradigm of Evil.